Canada is heading toward another federal election, and we wanted to hear from the community leaders in Northern Ontario. From Schreiber to Kenora, small and mid-sized communities across the region face challenges of their own. We spoke to several mayors to learn more about what they're facing and what they need from our next federal government.
All the communities along the North Shore, most of them are probably facing the same challenges.
You wouldn't believe a little town would have the problem, but we do have fentanyl problem.
Tariffs, housing.
Our relations with our American neighbors are really front of mind.
There's a possibility that small rural communities like ours could be left out with the result of the election. So we want to make sure that doesn't happen.
We asked each mayor to share some of the biggest challenges they're currently facing. You'll notice that many of our Northern Ontario municipalities are dealing with similar issues. Let's hear what they have to say.
Terrace Bay is an aging community, 80 years old. We need infrastructure money is one thing. We're also looking at supportive housing and also the infrastructure, because the small towns don't have the money to take on big, multi-million dollar infrastructure projects. The last one we did was $5.5 million. The federal government did chip in some. A small community like ours with a budget of only $8 million, we can't afford to do stuff like that on our own. So between the federal, provincial, and municipal governments does help, if they give us some money. We have an aging population. We've been looking at supportive housing in Terrace Bay for a number of years, but we'd like to see some government assistance to help us kickstart that project. Healthcare in this area too, where there is a doctor shortage, not just this area, but Canada and whole. So that would be a good help if they would step up and try and recruit some doctors to this area. I'm not too sure how the tariffs are going to affect a small community like us, but yeah, tariffs could become a major issue in a small town also, so yeah.
We've been in a state of emergency with our wastewater treatment plant since August 1st, 2024, and when infrastructure was allotted with big like water plants, wastewater plants, it seems that all the towns got them at the same time, and now all the towns are having all the same problems at the same time, and of course, it's going to be draining the government and everything, and the municipalities. It's hard on the taxpayer. All the infrastructure seems to be, like our wastewater plant is tied to housing. So really, if you think about it, we don't want to commit to any housing until we get our wastewater treatment plant fixed. It would be crazy to put the cart before the horse. Like, we can't build more housing when we got a sewer plant problem, so we have to get the sewer plant fixed first. And I mean, we're a little town of 1,000 people, and we need government help.
The top issues facing leaders along the North Shore and our communities along the North Shore is housing. That's the top. One of the top things. So it's so expensive to build in general in pretty much all of Canada from what I've heard, but especially in our rural communities. As far as I know, because that's where I live, up the North Shore in Nipigon, the price of housing is double of what it is or what it can be even just in Thunder Bay. So our communities, Nipigon's an hour's drive out of Thunder Bay, Schreiber, Terrace Bay about 2 hours, and then Marathon about 3 hours. So if you're getting contractors and carpenters and electricians and things like that, if you have to get them from Thunder Bay, you're paying a lot, because you're paying for the mileage, the extra travel time and everything. So help with housing is very important for economic development as well. There was a program that was launched called ISIP, so Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, that had happened between 2018 and 2023, and so that was a really good program for infrastructure. So along with housing support, we need the infrastructure to build the housing, so the water, the sewer, that kind of thing. And so if that program were to be brought back, that would be extremely helpful.
Well, I think top of mind is housing, and I know that all the leaders have addressed that in some fashion. We have never been able to get federal funding for housing when they just went through their Housing Accelerator Fund, 2 applications, and we were unsuccessful in both. They did indicate, or some leaders, that they would have additional funds ready for that. I know one particular leader talked about building X number of houses by such and such a date, and that's fine. What we need is some money to help us spur on that development. So money available directly to municipalities would be best for the city of Kenora. We have people that can't come here and work because there's not enough housing for them right now. There's very small inventory of vacant properties or houses, and we really need that now. If we're going to grow, we require certain level of additional housing to accomplish that. And these are people that are either trades or they're professionals in health science or healthcare sector, other professionals, whether it's doctors or nurses. We hear it all the time that there's just a lack of housing, so if they don't have housing to come, they're not coming, and we're losing out because we have a shortage in all those areas, and including trades. So it's vitally important there, and we need the direct connection between municipalities and the federal government. There should not be another middle level of government involved. If they have a program and we apply and we're successful, the money should come directly to the municipalities. We are best to take that money and utilize it properly.
The first issue that I would put would be the economy. And when I speak of the economy, I'll include with that tariffs, housing, immigration, and the international bridge that we have here in Fort Frances connecting us with International Falls. And then there's a triumvirate of issues that I link as one, and I think these are problems that go right across the country, and that's homelessness, addiction, and mental health. And I don't think it's possible to separate those out. They're too interrelated. And then a fourth issue that we're concerned with is border security. Pardon me, that's the third issue. And a fourth issue that we're concerned with is healthcare.
Sure, we've had a lot of concern lately, calls to our office regarding immigration. We have approximately 124 temporary foreign workers in Dryden at the moment, working in various businesses like restaurant, food services, retail, healthcare. And unfortunately, they've come to Dryden, they've got housing, they've got a full-time job. Unfortunately, they don't have no pathway to become a permanent citizen currently, and are in danger of having to leave our community and Dryden, which will really impact their lives, many of our local businesses and our communities. So this is a challenge that, and it's immediate, has to be rectified in the next 3-4 months. So how can federal leaders address that? Well, they did have the Federal Department of Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship Canada. They did have a rural northern immigration pilot project in our area, which was very successful. However, that pilot came to an end and they didn't renew the program. So this could be easily fixed by putting that program back in place in our area. I'd say the second challenge facing our community is housing. And one of the housing challenges that developers have had who have purchased land and are planning on building affordable housing like apartments, townhouses, and duplexes, they're unable to receive Canada Housing and Mortgage Corporation loans. to begin construction on these projects. So from a federal point of view, we need Canada Housing and Mortgage Corp to update their decision-making tools with local financial information. They've been using financial information that's not relevant to our communities. But we're in a situation where the cost of building a house or a housing complex is higher than the actual value that could be sold in the market after it's built. And so we're having a reluctancy for lenders to step in to help finance these. So support from the federal government to help these developers get over that hurdle of financing until at least the situation turns around, that would be very helpful.
Infrastructure and housing are two big ones for us. We're a small community with a small tax base, and most of our taxes go to just trying to maintain our infrastructure. And we really need some assistance from all forms of government to help us with some of the bigger key projects for infrastructure. One of the things that my CAO and myself always talk about is a bridge, a $5 million bridge costs $5 million, whether it's in Atikokan or whether it's in Thunder Bay or whether it's in Toronto. And that $5 million is a huge part of our tax base. So we really do need some relief on some of our main infrastructure projects. And then with the housing is we have people that are interested, but we have challenges in Northwestern Ontario with mobilizing construction companies and having people invest. So we need some infrastructure help. There's some building homes faster funds and things like that, but they're really geared to major cities, and us here in Northwestern Ontario and other smaller rural areas haven't really seen that assistance for the building homes faster. So I think it's important that we need housing as much as the cities do, and we need assistance in that as well. We do rely a lot on the municipal tax base and on the province, and we haven't really seen the federal government really step to the plate for small and rural communities. And I think that's so important. There's a model, where it's where grants are a lot of times it's a third federal, a third provincial, and a third municipal, which is great, and it's it's 66% of a project, but that's that 33% that's left to the municipality makes it unaffordable for us to take part in these grants.
Well, for us here in Thunder Bay and Northwestern Ontario, highway infrastructure has a big role for the federal government, as well as enhancing the port facilities, because it is becoming more apparent to people that our port is one of the most valuable in Canada. And so we have to make sure that the seaway can get that grain out. So working with our farming community out west, you can see this is a national effort.
From infrastructure and housing to immigration and border security, these municipalities are facing major barriers to economic development. We asked each mayor which issues they want the incoming federal government to address and what solutions they believe could make a real difference.
Smaller communities might be left a little behind when it comes to the federal government. The provincial government is more, I guess, in touch with the smaller communities, but I think the federal government has to take a more active role in helping the small communities because, like I said earlier, without assistance from the federal government in infrastructure, healthcare, and housing, there isn't a whole lot the small towns can do. So I think the federal government, like I said, should play a more active role in helping the small towns.
Don't matter which party, if you get two different parties, one provincially, one federally, or both are the same, I'd like to see them working closer together. It would make everything a lot easier for the municipalities.
The big thing is housing and infrastructure. Setting aside or granting a municipality a certain amount of money per new build, something like that, where that can help the municipality offset the costs of setting up water and sewer and things like that, and attaching that house to services would be really helpful. It's a big cost, and sometimes we have builders that come to us and say, you know, it's going to be so expensive for us to just build this house. Can you assist us with at least the water and sewer hookup if the lot's not serviced? So that would be really helpful. Something that's an elastic plan that can be applied to, you know, any community, whatever size it is, any size house would be great. So I'm not really sure what like how that might look, but I think that would be a good solution.
I know in the city of Kenora, on the justice side, with you know, early release and the whole issue around bail is a concern in the city. So if it's enacted at the federal level, I think we will feel that's a very important issue because we've seen the results of early release for whatever reason. And it's not good for the community. So it gets down to this, the safety of our community. Again, back to housing, and it's housing for everybody in that we're short right across the housing continuum. We have a need for affordable housing, but there's a lot of people that are kind of in the center that need either to downsize from a larger home at a certain point in their life, or there's individuals who are starting out. And I did see one plan where they referenced wartime houses when they built tens and tens of thousands of them in very short order. And I think one individual was sitting in one that was 50 or 60 years old and said, we can do this. So, you know, that's probably a price point that people can afford. The other issue I think is important in this region, because it's been ongoing since about 2008, is the twinning of the highway. I would like to see some federal funding and assistance to help the provincial government achieve those goals of twinning, at least from the, you know, where they've started near the border to the outskirts of Kenora, and then keep going on the east of Kenora and keep going towards east towards Dryden, or Vermilion Bay, Dryden. I think that's vitally important for our economy, especially for our tourism and for anybody who wants to establish a business here. Better highways are a good thing.
The economy, I think, is self-evident. Every single person in our country is going to be affected by it. And so we have a lot of seniors. They tend to be on a fixed income. We see the cost of living going up, the cost of food going up, and we don't know what's going to happen with tariffs and fresh fruits and vegetables. We see the cost of housing going up. So this directly affects a large portion of our population, our seniors. Housing, again, I mentioned, that's an issue right across the country, and we desperately need housing in Fort Frances, and we can't progress economically unless we can get housing to house workers coming in. And I mentioned earlier, and I'm going to mention it again in a moment, immigration. We have a number of excellent foreign workers in Fort Frances. They've really fit in well with our community. They're volunteering. They like it here. We love them. We want to keep them. But we don't know if they'll be able to stay because there's no path for them right now for permanent residency. And so when their work permits expire, if they can't get them renewed, and there's no guarantee they will be renewed, they have to go back to their home countries. And that's going to be a bit of an economic disaster for small business owners here. The federal government needs to do some what I call focused immigration, where they're putting incentives in place for immigrants to move to places where there is a labor shortage, and they incentivize them to go to those places. The average Canadian is doing a wonderful job. Shopping Canadian, we're all looking at labels to see if it's made in Canada. And I love to see that. But more needs to be done. And in Canada, we need to trade with each other. And for years and years and years, there have been barriers to interprovincial trade. Those barriers need to be removed, and it's up to the federal government to get involved with that so that goods can flow from coast to coast to coast. Why can't I get British Columbia wine, which is very good wine, by the way, in my local LCBO? It's because of trade barriers, interprovincial trade barriers. Or Ontario maple syrup should be able to be sold in any other province. So if we start trading with ourselves, at least that's going to improve the market for small businesses in every province. So that's something I'd like to see that can affect the economy, and anything that affects the economy is going to affect us here in Fort Francis. Homelessness, addiction, and mental health are self-explanatory. We have a real problem here in Fort Francis, as everyone does right across the country, and we need a national policy. We need an all-of-government approach. We don't have funding, and there needs to be funding, and we don't need a lot of funding, but there needs to be a pot of money that groups that are doing such good work in this area can access to put their expertise and put their plans into action.
Dryden being in Northwestern Ontario and really in the center of the forest sector industry, we're quite concerned about the effects of tariffs. The forest sector is really important industry that affects our ability to make a living for many people in our community and the spin-off benefits of it. So, and our forest industry is very integrated. Erie Falls Sawmill, Kenora with Weyerhaeuser, and Dryden with Dryden Fiber, they all utilize a resource together and share it. So it's important that we hold each other. And the U.S. tariff situation is evolving. There's a threat of increased tariffs up to 34% or even more coming in the fall. So this is really important that the federal government provide leadership to resolve these threats to our economy, really ensure that we can continue to utilize one of our greatest sustainable assets, our forests, and the well-paying jobs that they produce. Say on that front too, in our region, we are a resource-rich area, and we need to thoughtfully and carefully develop these resources in an environmentally responsible way. I think in general, the government process of approving permits can be done more efficiently, but they still need to consider all the economic, environmental, and social aspects carefully. In my opinion, the federal government can play a role by providing more support to these private companies as they go through that regulatory process, so that in some cases a decade isn't lost unnecessarily in the process. I think that would be beneficial for our region to kind of develop these in a sustainable way. I think maybe lastly is transportation. It's an issue that needs to be addressed over time. We have a 2-lane system with some passing lanes, and we're seeing increased traffic. We're seeing much more closures during the wintertime, much more terrific accidents, tragedies, fatalities. We're seeing that's a big issue. So we need to see the federal government invest over time. And it can be done slowly of adding more passing lanes, but eventually they need to think about twinning the highway through Northwestern Ontario. As you know, tariffs are really, of course, they're the focus right now. And there's so many good ideas, great ideas coming out on how the country can really change how we do business. We've taken the easy route and used the U.S. market because it was easier and it was really more affordable for businesses to work with the U.S. But now is an opportunity that with all the ideas that have come out about being more self-sufficient in Canada, that I really hope that whoever forms the next government doesn't forget about all these ideas that have come to the table. My fear is 6 months or a year from now, when this tariff business is semi-resolved, whether it is ever resolved, but when it is semi-resolved, that we go back to the status quo and business as usual. And I think we really have to maintain the focus on all these great ideas, that interprovincial trade, pipelines, all the great things that are coming out in Canada, and we have to keep working towards those and keep our eye on the prize on that, and not fall back into the reliance on the U.S. market as we have for years.
On the positive side of things, with the growth in mining and all the opportunities, not only Thunder Bay, but all the communities are certainly benefiting. So it's going to be a major year for us. And with some new highway plans to ensure more safety and to widen some lanes, I think we have a lot to look forward to.
What I saw when I talked to people is that there was a distinct lack of trust in federal leadership. And I think that trust needs to be regained, and I think it can be regained, and I think now is the time. What I'm seeing, and it really warms my heart, is right across the country, an outpouring of patriotism for Canada. Our Canadians are starting to realize what a wonderful, glorious country that we live in, and they're taking real pride in being part of this great big land that we all inhabit. This is a chance for whatever government comes into power in the next election to capitalize on that. And they need to take that and they need to run with it, and they need to earn the trust of Canadians. And the way they earn the trust of Canadians is by listening to Canadians. And how do you listen to Canadians? Well, we have a wonderful parliamentary system. Canadians will speak to their member of parliament, but what happens often is that the member of parliament doesn't get listened to by the leaders in government, and that needs to change. So whichever party forms the government, they need to realize that they govern on behalf of all Canadians. They shouldn't be just governing on behalf of those who voted for them, or those who have the same ideology, or those who belong to the same party. I want to see whatever federal government forms, that it governs on behalf of all Canadians, and then works on behalf of all Canadians to deal with our common problems.
As Canada approaches another federal election, we hope the voices of community leaders throughout this program have offered meaningful insight into the issues that matter most to you. We extend our heartfelt thanks to each of the mayors for their valuable contributions. Their perspectives have been truly enlightening. And finally, thank you for watching.